Okay, in this tutorial we are going to make a model of the Earth that looks something like this. What we're going to start with is just a shell, then we're going to add a map of the Earth, we're going to add a bump map, a specularity mask, a nighttime side to the Earth, some clouds, some atmosphere, some stars in the background, and then a glow effect. And that's going to take us through to the end. I got the idea for making this from a video I watched by someone else. This is a YouTuber who online calls himself Blender Guru, and he had this how to create a realistic Earth in Blender. But this video is from 2012, and Blender's been updated since then, so some of the things that are in the video don't work quite the same. So I'm going to make a video where it's just happening in an up-to-date version of Blender, so that we don't have to worry about the differences. So yeah, just so that nobody thinks I'm trying to steal from Blender Guru. It's his idea, and I just updated it for modern Blender. The first thing we'll need is a folder on our desktop, which we'll call Earth, and that's where we're going to put all our things. Into that folder we should put the image resources, which you'll find in the public box, because we need to plaster the Earth with these image resources. So if you look in the image resources folder, let's see, we can look at extra large icons. You can see we've got 6 maps. They're quite large maps. There's the color map of the Earth, there's the night lights, there's a clouds graphic, a stars graphic, a bump map which shows the height of various places in the Earth as lighter colors, and low sea level is black, and then a specularity mask which shows all the land mass as white and all the sea and lakes as black. So we're going to be using all of those. So make sure you've placed those inside this Earth folder on your desktop, and then we'll want to start a new Blender project. You'll notice if I do things in Blender, I've got a little icon down here in the left hand side that tells you all the things I do. So if I left click or right click, it shows you what I just did there, and if I press a key like G, it shows you what I pressed there. We're going to delete this cube, so I pressed X and deleted that cube, and then we're going to add a sphere, a UV sphere, and I'm going to make that 64 segments and 32 rings, and also I'm going to place it in the center of the world. Just going to set its location to 0, 0, 0, and look at it from the front, and I'm going to move the camera to face down that axis. So I'm going to press Alt Control 0 so that I'm facing the Earth. You can see that the Earth is kind of, well, you can see the faces on it, so I'm going to go into Tools and click Smooth for smooth shading. And I'm going to go into the camera settings as well. Just get rid of that and get rid of the toolbar. So I'm going to be moving pretty fast in this video, so you'll have to pause a lot to keep up with what I'm doing, and pay attention to down here to see what things I'm clicking. I'll try and say them all, but I might forget some. So if we go into the camera settings here and change the focal length, this is just like a zoom. I'm going to change that to 45. Maybe a little larger actually. Kind of depends where you were in the 3D view when you press Control Alt 0. But you can just mess around with that until the Earth sphere is taking up most of the viewport. I'm going to change the viewport shading down here to material so that we can see how the light is shining on the Earth. I'm going to go to that lamp and change it to a sun, and then I'm going to pop into quad view so that we can adjust how the sun is shining on the Earth. So to do that I want to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it in this window, and that looks good, and then also rotate it in this window. I'm trying to get it so that it shines a light on quite a lot of the Earth but leaves part of it in darkness. And we'll see why we're doing that later. So once you're happy with the position of the sun, you can pop back out of quad view. I'm going to pop into the world settings here and set the horizon color to solid black by dragging that down. And I'm going to pop into the render settings and put the resolution up to 100%. And then render the scene by pressing F12. Just scroll out there a little bit so that we can see our image. I want to save each of the steps we're going through, so we'll press F3 and we'll save that image on the desktop in the folder Earth, and I'm going to save that image as Earth01 underscore and then all caps shell PNG. Save that. Press escape to get back to Blender. I want to save my project now just in case something goes wrong, so I'm going to save the project also in that Earth folder on the desktop, and I'll save it as earth.blend. As we go through this process, you might find yourself with not wanting to go all the way back to the beginning, but have made a mess of something and you don't know how to recover from it. So it's a good idea to also save copies of your blend file as you go along. So I'm going to go to File, Save Copy, and I'm going to call the copy Earth1 underscore shell in all caps. Just the same name as I gave the PNG, but this is for the blend file. And if I click Save that, then the one we're working on is still Earth Blend. If I minimize this and go and look in that folder, and then we can see there's the image resources, there's the Earth Blend file that we're working on, there's a save that we've made called Earth1 Shell, which is our progress up to this point, and we've also made a screenshot of our progress up to this point. So I'm going to be doing this at various stages so that if we need to go back a step, it's going to be easier than going all the way back to the beginning. So I want you to do that same thing as well. So that's the first step finished. The next thing we're going to do is add a material to the sphere. So select the sphere, click on the material tab and click new, and we're going to immediately give this material a name. We're going to call this Earth Day, and we're going to change the shading in the diffuse panel here from Lambert to Minert, and change the darkness on that to 0.3. You can see in the preview window some of the effect that's having on the sphere. As well as having this material, we're also going to add a texture, and we're going to make a new texture, and I'm going to call that call for color. It's going to be the color map, and we can open the image. We go to the image resources folder, and you can have a look at thumbnails in here by clicking one of these buttons, that one. And so the one we want is the color map of the Earth, so we're going to open that up, and if you click both here, you get to see a preview of what it's going to look like on your image. Let's make that a bit smaller and then minimize this tab, and then down here of course we have to change the coordinates to generated and sphere. You can see that the preview here on the right hand side is not the same as what I'm seeing in this window over here, and that's because the material viewport shading kind of lies to us about how the texture is going to work out. If we switch it to rendered, we get to see what it will look like when it's rendered, more or less. We want to rotate the Earth a little bit because at the moment we're just looking at ocean. So if we pop into the properties window by pressing N and then change the rotation on the Z axis by 135 degrees, then we see a more interesting part of the Earth. You might want to look at a different part of the Earth, but this part is good for this exercise because this shiny spot that's shining half on the ocean and half on India is going to help us detect whether or not our specularity mask is working later on. So this is a good view for now. If you'd rather look at a different part of the Earth, feel free, but you really want that shiny spot to be half on ocean, half on land for things we're going to do later on. It's kind of processor intensive to have this render view open all the time, so I'm going to switch that back to solid mode, and then I'm going to render the scene by pressing F12, and there's our Earth in space. Let's press F3 to save that, and I'll call this Earth2 and I'll, instead of shell, I'm going to call it map, and I'm going to save that, and then escape to get back to your modeling view. And then I'm also going to save my blend file again, and I'm going to save a copy again because we've just reached another stage. So Earth02 underscore map.blend, save that, and that's the second part done. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is add a bump map, and that's going to give the surface a sense of 3D-ness, even though it's just a 2D graphic. So if we click on this new texture slot here and click new, and we'll call this one bump because it's going to be a bump map. And for the image, we'll click open and go into image resources, and it forgets that we wanted to look at thumbnails, which is a bit annoying. So just select the bump map for that one. So this one has white for high mountains and black for the ocean, and so that's how it distinguishes between high and low. We're going to open that image up, immediately go down to the mapping coordinates and set that to generated and sphere, and you can see kind of what that's going to look like in this preview here. Down in the influence settings, we want to switch the color off because we don't actually want to look at all that black and white. So uncheck color, but we're going to check normal, and we're going to set that to 0.2, and then change bump mapping to best quality, and then we want to render that to see what it looks like. So you can see that the Himalayas, let's just zoom in there, the Himalayas in India are high up and the ocean is low down, and all these mountain ranges have a height to them now. Let's save that image by pressing F3, and we'll save that as Earth3, and instead of map we'll call it bump. Save image. We'll escape to get back to our model view, and again I'm going to save the Blender file and save a copy called, you guessed it, Earth3 underscore bump. Okay, the last thing I'm going to add in this particular video is, let's render this again so you can see what I'm going to try and fix. What we're looking at right now is, you know, an image of the Earth, and we've got this shiny spot, and the thing is that the shiny spot is just as shiny on land as it is on the water, and we want to adjust that so that the water is shiny and the land isn't. So we're going to use a thing called a specularity mask to make some parts of the Earth shiny and some parts not. So we're going to add a third texture, and this one we'll call spec for specularity. For the image, we're going to open up another one of our images. This one, the spec mask. You can see the ocean is all black and the lakes and the land is all white. So we'll open that up. You can see what that looks like here. We'll change the mapping once again to generated and sphere. We have a few changes to make down in the influence section. We want to uncheck the color so it doesn't actually show up as black and white. We're going to check RGB to intensity and negative down here. So RGB to intensity and negative. We can kind of see the effect. Oh, well, actually we can't see any effect here right now. Then we want to check intensity down in specular and set that to 0.5. And let's render that. And that hasn't actually brought the shine down as much as I was hoping, but I think the problem is that I'm adjusting the specularity here, but there's also a specularity setting back in the material here, which is set to 0.5 as well. So I'm going to take that down to 0 so that I'm just controlling the specularity just in this one location. So let me re-render that. Ah, there we go. So the specularity now is shiny on the texture on the ocean, but not shiny on the land masses. Very important that you remember to go to the Materials tab and set the specular intensity down to 0 on the Earth Day material for this to work. Okay, let's make sure we've saved an image here. So this will be Earth 4 underscore, and instead of bump, let's call this spec for specularity. And escape to get back to the model. And we'll save our project and save a copy. And this will be Earth 4 underscore spec dot blend. I wanted to keep these videos relatively short rather than do all 9 steps in one video. So I'm going to end this video here, and that's us ending with our Earth looking a little bit better than it did at the beginning. We started just with a white sphere, and then we've added the color map, the bump map, and the specularity mask. In the next video we're going to add night lights. And that's that.